Today I'm going to show you the AMD R9 285 running a AMD bundled game called Dirt Rally. The game is still in beta, it's not publicly released yet, but it is bundled with some of the new AMD cards. The AMD R9 285 is special because it's the only card available right now that allows portrait, landscape portrait gaming. You have to do it in software outside of this card, and the software that's available only supports up to DirectX 9. It's called Softth. With the release of this card, we finally have hardware support, and that will go up through DirectX 12 on this 285 card. So on the left we have a Dell 2007FP, in the middle there's a Dell 3014, and on the right another Dell 2007FP. The native resolution of the Dell 2007FP is 1600 by 1200. Of course, when it's in portrait, it's 1200 by 1600. And the native resolution of the Dell 3014 is 2560 by 1600. I'm going to go ahead and launch the game here. The machine that this game is running on is an Intel i7 4770K, which is a 4th generation Haswell. There's 16 gigs of RAM on the machine. We'll go ahead and run the benchmark. If my camera will focus here, you can see that the preset is just high. We'll go to benchmark mode, and we'll just run the benchmark test. And I'm going to go ahead and kick it off here. Now, of course, the benefit to portrait landscape portrait gaming is that normally you'd only have this as your viewing, but you have peripheral covered with the portrait monitors on the side, and I'll show that in game. Now the total combined resolution of this is 5146 by 1600, and that's with bezel correction. And bezel correction is important because if you don't utilize bezel correction that's available with AMD Infinity, then as something migrates, like a tree or a person migrates off the center monitor onto the side monitor, then it jumps the frame, and you can see the person might be divided in half and the bezel is in the middle, and it doesn't really look right. So the bezel correction actually allows the objects on the screen to disappear behind the bezel as if it's perhaps the A-frame of a car or something else that just obscures your vision, but there's still content behind it. Works great in games, not so great in menus. Sometimes you'll have an item that you need to look at or check or text that appears behind the bezel and you can't even see it. So you have to move the window to the left or right. So one of the things I've figured out here is there's a little bit of vertical sync issue or Vsync issue on the left-hand side and the right-hand side, the monitors. I'm not sure exactly what that is. I have to research a little bit more. I just hooked this up here recently. I haven't color matched the displays at all. There's still a little bit of optimization that needs to be done, but right out of the gate I'm pretty impressed with performance. On these high settings at 5160 by 1600, I was getting about 48 frames per second. On ultra settings at the same resolution, 5160 by 1600, I actually got about 35 frames per second. That's not bad at all for a single card with just 2 gigs of video RAM. So, showing you in-game what I'm talking about, if you just had a single 30-inch screen, which is obviously a very high resolution for a single display, that's what you would see. But I can actually look to my left and see more in my peripheral with that second monitor there, and likewise I can do the same thing over here and see more content. So as I'm screwed up to the display with my controller, it just makes the game world seem all that more realistic because I can see action out of my peripheral vision. Another thing I'd like to point out is on these Dell 2007FP monitors, when you put them in portrait mode, you have kind of obnoxious lights from the power and this input selection display, and I see that on all the videos on YouTube where people use their displays and you have the light then, since on the left hand side you would typically have that light right there. There's a simple fix for that. Where this display mounts, you take out 4 screws on the back, you flip it 180 degrees on the mounting mechanism, and you put the 4 screws back in. Now all of a sudden, your lights are on the top right and not in the middle of your display bezel, causing a distraction. So when I did the bezel correction, I actually placed, to eliminate some of the extra width of the bezels, I placed the 20-inch monitor slightly behind the 30-inch monitors in order to kind of accommodate a slimmer bezel. Some people actually remove the bezels. I haven't taken to that step. I guess I might at some point, but not yet. So here's the benchmark test summary. 48 frames per second. Minimum frame per second was 40. Maximum frames was 56. It's really not bad. Again, a single card with 2 gigs of video RAM running at 5164 by 1600 resolution. On a, not even a, it's a current gen game, it's not even out yet, called Dirt Rally. If you have any questions, send a comment below.